Hey, it's Mark here again, and in this particular video, I just want to focus on the four areas of our Reshape Your Life program, the 7 Pillars program. There are four distinct areas that we're going to focus on, and we're going to apply the Reshape acronym, the rigor and the service and the honesty and the accountability and execution and so on in all four of these areas. And just to reiterate, those four areas again are physical, professional, emotional, and spiritual. And I just want to touch on the spiritual one in this video. I think I may have shared with some of you in previous videos or audios that I recently have gone through, I guess, an empty nest kind of circumstance in my life when my youngest child left the roost for the last time. And I remember coming home, I think I was dropping off my daughter actually in New York, and I came home and there was no one home, just my dog. And it was overwhelming. It was literally overwhelming. I teared up and I got scared, I got anxious, I got depressed, I got sad, I got all those negative emotions. And I didn't see it coming. I was driving home from New York, I just dropped her off. My son was no longer living with me. My eldest daughter had been gone for quite some time. And that running and treadmill work that you do as a parent for so long, the rug just gets yanked right out from under you. And I come home and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do with this. So it created a lot of space. And one of those spaces was the option that I gave myself to go back to a more spiritual existence. I was raised a Catholic. I went to church every Sunday and Holy Day for 17 years. And then I went off to college, and even though I went to Notre Dame, which is a Catholic institution, I didn't go to church again for 35 years. I just dropped it. I don't honestly know why, but I know when I experienced this completely emptiness that I experienced in this nest that was now empty, I thought immediately to myself, I can make some really good choices here, or I can make some really bad choices. And you know the bad choices, eating poorly, drinking too much, drugs, hanging around with the wrong people, the pursuit of perhaps pleasure as opposed to more joy, more abundance, and things like service. So one of the things I did is I went back out and I started looking around for some spiritual guidance. And because it was familiar to me, the Catholic Church, that's where I started. And I went to a few different churches, and I will tell you, I've been to a lot of churches in my life, and some of them have been gloom and doom and dark and, hell and fire and brimstone, and I get it. I get why people are not interested in that experience. I'm not interested in that experience. But I happened upon a church down the street from me, which is associated with a really good private Catholic school. And I went in one day, and I just listened. And fortunately for me, there were two priests, the pastor and one of the other priests that did the vast majority of the preaching. And both of them were funny, they were engaging, they were good storytellers. One of them's a big fan of movies and talks about them in his sermons. The other one's a big fan of football and talks about who won the game this past Saturday or Sunday in the sermon. And I was engaged. I think this is a really important part of your spiritual practice, which I would highly recommend you pursue, regardless of denomination. I'm not preaching that you believe in God or that you believe in my God or that you become a Catholic or even a Christian for that matter. That's entirely up to you. But spiritual practice is pretty awesome. And I think one of the things I found when I was going back to church is I was listening for 17 years to Charlie Brown's Teacher. That wah, 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 wah. I wasn't there because I wanted to be. I was there because my father made me. And thank you for that, Dad, by the way, because I did have that to go back to. It was familiar to me based on 17 years of you dragging me out of bed at 10 o'clock in the morning, making me go to Mass. And then I went to a Catholic university. I didn't go to church at all. I don't think I went once, maybe to a wedding. But boy, when I went back to church recently, 2 years ago now, I've been going every Sunday for about 2 years, I started listening to what was being said. I started recognizing the message. I started recognizing the word. And one of the things I get, there's two things I read every day without exception. One is a blog from a gentleman by the name of Seth Godin, who, if you know him, he's a pretty remarkable marketing guy. I don't know that we're politically aligned. I don't know that we're religiously aligned at all. It's more of a business thing. and to some extent life lessons kind of stuff. He's a brilliant guy, written a lot of books, and I highly recommend you look him up. Seth Godin, Godin. The other thing I get is I get a prayer from Notre Dame, from my alma mater, and every day I get a prayer, and so there's a reading from the gospel, which sometimes is a couple of sentences or a paragraph, and right underneath that is an individual personal interpretation of what that gospel reading means to a specific person. And that person, in this regard, has to be affiliated with Notre Dame in some capacity. So a current student, a teacher, a priest, somebody in administration, as long as they have an nd.edu email, they're invited to comment. And some of those personal interpretations are just absolutely phenomenal. Because you can only imagine if someone's 21 years old or 52 with 5 kids getting ready to retire, their perspective on the same reading could be dramatically different. And I find sometimes the Bible is kind of like Shakespeare. Like, what does it mean? What are you trying to say? These parables, these messages are so easily misinterpreted or misunderstood. And when you have someone who's faithful and knowledgeable interpreting that, they're breakthroughs. I often find myself quoting them or copying them and pasting them into things that I write. And then there's a prayer at the bottom. So the whole thing takes 3 minutes to read, and I get it every day. That's my spiritual practice, and then church on Sunday. So I'm not suggesting that you follow my spiritual practice at all. I'm just suggesting that you find one for yourself. I don't know that I've ever gone into church or I've ever read that prayer in the morning in my email and not felt just a little bit better about myself and my prospects for the day and my life. Optimism, hope, joy. It's pretty awesome. So seek one out, find one that you like, that you can commit to, do it on a regular basis, and make sure that whoever is preaching to you, and this is true of mentors, yoga instructors, coaches, teachers, priests, everybody, they have to resonate with you. They have to speak to you. That could mean a particular sense of humor. That could mean a particular level of intellect or knowledge base, personality, look and feel. It doesn't matter, whatever it is to you. But if they don't resonate with you, you're not going to get the same experience out of your spiritual journey. So take a look around, read some things, talk to some people, and find a spiritual path. It will create peace. It will create happiness, and it will support you in everything else that you do. So hopefully that was helpful, and look forward to bumping into you in the next video. Thanks.